what you are intending to import in the warehouse. So you will compute the differential duty or the duty proposed to be paid, but which you are not paying, and this is deferred. So triple duty bond you have to execute at the time when you obtain the permission. No export obligation or NFE obligation. So this is very good benefit in this, that there is no obligation that you have to manufacture and then export. You are free to clear in domestic tariff also. A single application. So 58 and 65, two permissions are required, one license, one permission, and single application would be good enough for you to obtain that facility. There is no need for you to separate apply for under 58 and 65. So this is one more benefit in this. Next. So second, application is made to principal commission. Just this comes on our mind that where should we apply? Suppose if I intend to convert my existing unit, where should I apply? So application is to be made to your principal commissioner of customs having jurisdiction over your existing premises which you want to convert into bonded warehouse. The requirement is you have to maintain the accounts, because bonded warehouse is giving you the facility not to pay duty till the time you are clearing the goods for home consumption. So therefore, the government also wants you to have some kind of records that what goods you are coming into the bonded warehouse, what goods are being cleared for home consumption or sending the goods for job work, etc., or for export. So that record you have to maintain in a digital form. That also form prescribed. So in that form, you have to maintain the records. Then you have to also get the norms approved from your principal commissioner. Norms in the sense that 1 kg of raw material, suppose if you import, how much finished goods you are supposed to manufacture. Is it like 1:1, 1:0.9, 1:0.75? So it will depend upon the industry data, or if suppose your product is already figuring in the standard input output norms, so that can be a basis for you to get the norms approved from principal commissioner. So you need not go to DGFT and all, you can get it approved from principal commissioner. But now question comes, principal commissioner may not be having any technical background, so how will he confirm or approve your norms? So for that you have to provide your detail about your batch report for last 3 years data, etc., or SI1 or any other technical support. Basis that your norms can be approved. Next. When you set up your bonded warehouse and you obtain the permission under section 65, you can import the raw material or capital goods into the warehouse without payment of custom duty. So custom duty would be deferred. If suppose if the raw materials is converted into finished goods and finished goods are exported, then your custom duty will get exempted. So at the time of importing, there is no exemption. It is deferment. But the moment you manufacture finished goods and export, then this custom duty will get remitted. Basically, there is exemption you will get. If suppose if finished goods are cleared in domestic market, then what will happen? Then you have to pay custom duty on the raw materials, a custom duty including IGST on the raw materials and applicable GST on the finished goods. So these two things you have to pay when you clear the finished goods in domestic market. Deferment of import duty on capital goods with no interest liability. For capital good, this is very good benefit in this, that if you import the capital goods into bonded warehouse, you will get the deferment payment of benefit. You need not pay custom duty on the capital goods so long as the goods remain in the bonded warehouse. The day when you clear the goods from bonded warehouse, you have to pay the duty. Now question comes, how long I can retain or how long I can keep the goods, capital goods in bonded warehouse? There is no time limit. This once you obtain the permission for setting up the under 58 and 65, this is perpetual. Unless you go to department and say that my license, please cancel my license. Till that time, this will be valid. So therefore, there is no time limit for you to retain or remain the goods in the bonded warehouse, and you need not pay any custom duty. If suppose if you raw material when you imported, our intention was that we will use for manufacture, but somehow if I am not in position to manufacture and if I clear the raw material as such, what will happen? Then I have to pay the custom duty, whatever custom duty I did not pay at the time of importing into bonded warehouse. But doubt comes whether interest would be payable or not, because the act, the amendment which I was referring in 2016 contemplates that no interest is required to be paid if goods are imported by more, basically the 65 license holder. But the circular issued by board and the circular issued in the context of special warehouse seems to suggest that if the raw materials imported into bonded warehouse are cleared as such, then you have to pay duty along with interest. So this is one gray area. So Act provides in favor of the assessee, but circular seems to suggest that interest also is required to be paid. Next. So this is the amendment which I was talking about. There is this significant amendment in May 2016. So the section 61, which governs this import of goods in bonded warehouse and the time limit within which you can store, this was amended. And the amended section, if you see the right hand side, so this clause A and clause B, this was a significant amendment. This says any warehouse goods may remain in the warehouse in which they are deposited or in any warehouse to which they may be removed in the case of capital goods intended for use in 100% EOU, STP, ESTP, or any warehouse wherein manufacture or other operations have been permitted under section 65. So there is no time limit. They say till the time they clear from home consumption, you can store the goods in bonded warehouse. That is for the capital goods. B, in the case of goods other than capital goods intended for use in any 100% EOU, ESTP, or STP, or any warehouse wherein manufacture or other operations have been permitted till their clearance or till their consumption or clearance from the warehouse. So this is B is for other than capital goods. C, in the case of any other goods till the expiry of 1 year from the date on which the proper officer has made an order under subsection 1 of section 60. So C will be applicable other than 65 facility. If suppose if you import, if you are having the 58 license only, you do not come under 65 for not manufacturing, then you will be governed under 61 1C. So therefore 1A, 1B, there is no time limit for you to store. Yes, next. Now this is the again the 61(2). This the amended right hand side says where any warehouse goods specified in clause C of subsection 1 remain in a warehouse beyond a period of 90 days from the date on which the proper officer has made an order under subsection 1 of section 60. Interest shall be payable at such rate as may be fixed by government under section 47 on the amount of duty payable at the time of clearance of the goods for the period from the expiry of the said 90 days till the date of payment of duty on the warehouse goods. So interest-free period for you to remain the goods in bonded warehouse is 90 days. But this interest in terms of section 61(2) would be applicable if you fall under 61 1C. And as I was talking about the previous slide, says 61 1C is not for bonded mover. So therefore, if 61(2) requires me to pay interest for beyond 90 days, then that will be only for the situation which covers under 61 1C. So therefore, in terms of these provisions, our understanding is that if you import the goods, if you have the manufacturing facility, this manufacturing facility under section 65, you need not pay interest. But circular seems to suggest that interest will be payable. Yes, next. This is the duty implication, that how will I what duties I have to pay, what I need not pay. So the left hand side, if you see imported raw material, if I import, then duty would be deferred, no need to pay any duty. Right hand side, export of finished goods, if I export finished goods, then this duty would be waived off, no need to pay any custom duty, whatever deferment payment of duty will be waived off. If I procure from domestic tariff area, if suppose if I have the permission under 65, if I procure domestically, so this is not deemed export. No deemed export benefit would be available, like in case of advanced license or EOU or EPCG is available. You have to pay applicable GST, no drawback, etc. would be available. So domestically procured goods, you have to pay applicable GST. But if suppose finished goods are cleared in domestic, then you have to pay basic custom duty and IGST on imported raw material and GST on finished goods. So this is the duty implication when you operate under mover. Yes. This is also one of the gray area when you manufacture the goods into bonded warehouse, and if the waste is arising during the manufacturing process, what treatment you have to give, whether you have to pay duty on the waste or whether the duty on the waste would be waived off. So it depends upon if the finished goods manufactured in bonded warehouse is exported and waste is destroyed, then no duty is to be paid. But finished goods are exported and waste is cleared in domestic, then you have to pay applicable custom duty on the waste as if the waste has been imported into India. So one treatment if it will depend upon the finished goods exported or not. The second, if finished goods are cleared for home consumption and waste is arising, then you have to pay custom duty on the inputs contained in the waste. So how we like know the inputs contained in the waste also will depend upon the norms what we have to get it approved from principal commission. So this how we have to pay our duty etc. on the waste arising during the manufacturing. Next. This is a welcome move, as I was talking about that there was no clarity prior to October 20, and many of the SSC they were facing this problem, or they were basically asking whether like EOU can undertake job work activity, SEZ can undertake job work activity, or DTA can undertake job work activity. Whether if I operate under mover, whether I can get the goods manufactured on job work, or I can undertake job work activity on behalf of DTA. So they allowed that the mover also can send the goods on job work basis. It can come back and it has to follow the GST provisions, what is mentioned in the GST. Within 180 days or so, the goods have to come back, and applicable GST on the service portion is required to be discharged. And I can also get the goods on job work basis from the DTA, and after manufacturing, after completing the job work activity, I can even either export the goods or I can clear into domestic tariff area, which is not there currently in EOU or SEZ. So EOU or SEZ also are allowed to undertake job work activity only for the purpose of export. The finished goods are required to be exported only. These finished goods cannot be cleared in domestic tariff, but this facility is there in mover. This was clarified in the circular. And repair also can be undertaken in warehouse. That also is permitted. Yes. But the problem here is manufacture and other operations. So manufacture, we all know that converting the raw material into the finished goods, because distinct name and distinct characteristics of the goods will arise. But what do you mean by other operations? Whether the service activity would cover in these, or any what exactly would cover under the other operations is not defined, is not clarified. Second, no all industry rate of drawback is available on export from warehouse. So if you manufacture the goods from bonded warehouse outside India, you will not be eligible to get AIR. All industry rate of drawback will not be available. So that is the drawback. That is the disadvantage position in this. And filing X bond bill of entry for each supply for home consumption. As and when you clear the finished goods from bonded warehouse to DTA, domestic tariff for home consumption, on each supply you have to file bill of entry for the inputs contained in the finished goods, and you have to discharge the applicable custom duty along with interest on those inputs. So this is cumbersome task, because if there are industries who clear on daily basis. If suppose if they are on regular basis, if they import, and on regular basis if there are clearances, so on each clearance you have to file bill of entry and you have to discharge the custom duty. So that task is there. So we have suggested to file representation whether they can allow you to file monthly bill of entry and discharge the duty also accordingly, but still there is no clarity. So this is one of the area where we can make representation. Yes, next. Yeah. So now my colleague Saurabh would be dealing. So this is all about the mover. What is about the mover? Now he will be highlighting. Suppose if you have to choose any scheme with respect to manufacture and export, what all factors, what all things you have to keep in mind, that Saurabh will be taking forward. Yes, Saurabh, over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Ratan sir, for explaining the mover scheme very lucidly. In short, it is a scheme, or it is a provision under the Customs Act where a warehouse can be set up, manufacturing operations can be done in that warehouse, goods can be imported into that warehouse, no duty needs to be paid at time of import, and if you are exporting the goods, the import duties would be remitted, or in simple terms exempted. And if you are clearing the goods into DTA, then you need to pay the import duties, whatever we have deferred, without any interest liability. In short, that is the mover scheme. Why do we see it as a scheme? Because the objective of every export promotion scheme, be it advanced license, EOU, SEZ, or now mover, objective of every scheme is that whatever import duties are there, on the imported goods, whatever duties are liable to be paid, if those goods are used in export products, the duties should be exempted. So all scheme try to achieve the same objective, that whenever any goods are used in export product, the import duties should be exempted. Here, moreover, we term it as a scheme because it also achieves that objective. When goods are exported and any imported raw material is used, import duties on the imported raw material is exempted, remitted. That's why it's a scheme. Now the choice comes before us that whether to go for mover, whether to go for EOU, whether to go for SEZ or advanced license EPCG. There are four kinds of schemes which there are there under the Customs Act or the foreign trade policy for an exporter. Every scheme has different features, different compliances, different treatments for the sale of goods, purchase of goods. Differences are there in every scheme. Some scheme may suit well to some exporters, some may suit well to some another set of exporters, basis their factual scenario. Now, when I say basis their factual scenario, then what are the scenarios? These are some factors which one needs to take into account when he is trying to choose a scheme. What is your outlook of export business in the future? What is the outlook of your DTA business in the future? Export business means export outside India. DTA businesses I refer to finished goods sold into India. What is your probable investment in plant and machinery coming up? What is the proportion of imported raw material vis-a-vis domestic raw material? Licensing, capacity utilization, compliance, geographical limitation. These are all the factors. These are not mutually exclusive factors which you need to take into account. They may have to be clubbed and seen which scheme is better. Now you have seen that investment in plant and machinery we can take along with what is the quantum of your export and DTA business. So if you have, now we have seen that under the mover scheme, you can import capital goods and duty will be deferred. You don't need to pay it now. What if I use this for capital goods for 10 years under the mover scheme, and after 10 years, I want to clear this capital goods into the domestic market? What are the implications? Whatever import duties 10 years back I was liable to be paid, value at 10 years back, which I imported plant and machinery, and the rate which is applicable now after 10 years, combining that, whatever import duties are liable to be paid, 100% I have to pay. I don't get any exemption for the depreciation which the machinery had in last 10 years. Why? Because mover scheme does not have any export commitment. That's why they don't give any depreciation on plant and machinery. Now, what if you have heavy investment in plant and machinery coming up and you have good export business? You have some strong export outlook. Then you should not go for mover scheme, because under other schemes, take it EPCG, take it EOU or SEZ, if you use the capital, if you complete the export commitment and in a certain period depreciation is provided. So in EOU SEZ, in 10 years, full depreciate machinery is fully depreciated. After 10 years, if you want to sell it in domestic market, you don't need to pay any duties. So if you have strong export business, you go for other schemes. What if you have a heavy investment in plant and machinery coming up, but your business is majorly in India? You have majorly domestic sales only. So here mover scheme can be useful to you, because your capital goods pay, when you import, duties will be deferred. It will not be required to be paid now. And after 10 years, the interest benefit you are getting on the deferred duties is a financial benefit you are getting, which you don't get under any other scheme. So if you have heavy investment in plant and machinery, but a majorly domestic sales, mover can be a good scheme. You will have to compare it with other factors, but the interest benefit you get here, you may have to take into account. Now, second, we have seen that when imported raw materials come into the mover warehouse and you do manufacturing. Suppose you sell the finished goods after 6 months, or suppose you sell after 1 year. Your duties on the imported raw material are deferred for 6 months or 1 year. You do after 6 months, when you clear the goods into finished goods into domestic market, you need to surrender the duties, import duties, but without any interest liability. So here also, if your business has majorly imported raw material and a lot of domestic sales are there, your domestic market is big, then the mover scheme with the interest benefit can be a big factor you have to consider, because for that 6 months or 1 year, import duties are deferred on the raw material that you may have to consider. ITC will licensing under, now this is a negative under the mover scheme. If you opt for an advanced license scheme and suppose your imported raw material are restricted for import under the import policy, then you don't need to take any other license along with the advanced license. Advanced license itself take care of the restricted license. Mover may, that benefit will not be there. If you have a mover license, you will have to again take a license from DGFT for those restricted goods where you're importing. So that is some additional licensing requirements over here that you need to take into account. Other factors we'll consider in the next slide. Now here I have noted down what are the benefits of the mover scheme over other scheme. So here one we have taken as no export commitment is there, or no minimum value addition is required to be achieved. There is no limit of clearing finished goods into DTA. 100% DTA sales are also allowed. If you are having a heavy investment in Martin machinery, take it under mover and 100% business you can do in DTA. You may have to do the compliances of mover scheme. Capacity utilization by way of undertaking job work or for DTA units. Just a while we discussed that under mover, your capacity of your plant and machinery can be utilized for doing job work for domestic suppliers. Now this job work can be of two kinds. One is you take the intermediate goods, convert into finished goods and export out of India. One is you take the intermediate goods, convert into finished goods and sell it back to the domestic supplier or in India. So under the EOU and SEZ scheme, if you want to do job work, you have to compulsorily export outside India, because you are using duty-free capital goods under those schemes. That's not required to use the plant and machinery for DTA business. Here that requirement is not there. You can take it, intermediate goods can be taken from DTA supplier. You can make finished goods and supply back to the DTA supplier. So that kind of business opportunity, if you have, that can be achieved under the mover scheme and not under the EOU SEZ scheme. Now there is no bar in clearing imported goods as such. There can be an interest liability beyond 90 days, but you are allowed to do trading with the imported raw material. That kind of a flexibility is not there in advanced license scheme or EOU SEZ scheme. Next is the problem which is faced by many advanced authorization EOU holders. Export on payment of IGST even if procurement. So what problem was faced currently? For advanced authorization and EOU holders, if they import raw material without payment of IGST and manufacture finished goods which are exported on payment of IGST, that was not required. That was in violation of the rule 9610 of the GST rule. There have been many notices issued in the last 6 months to all these advanced authorization EOU holders to give back the IGST refund which they have availed. So exporters are stuck in those notices now. That kind of a flexibility you have in mover. You can import without payment of IGST. You can export on payment of IGST. As of now, rule 9610 does not cover the mover scheme. So under mover, you are allowed to do this. This can help in minimizing the ITC accumulation you have. No capacity expansion or new R&D required for conversion of existing unit. There are some requirements under the EOU law that if you are converting an existing unit, either there should be some capacity expansion or some new research and development. That kind of condition is not there. No geographical limitation. any factory of yours anywhere located in India can be converted into a mover scheme. Now we have seen the good side of it, we should also see the other side of it. What benefits you don't get under mover? Now these all benefits we have noted down that you get under the other schemes, but you don't get under the mover scheme. Excise duty and CST exemption or refund on procurement of fuel from domestic tariff area. So whatever fuel you are getting from domestic tariff area, you will have to pay full excise duty and full CST or VAT on those procurements of fuel. Nothing is exemption. Under advanced license, there is a excise duty exemption. Under EOU, excise duty CST is exempted. Under SEZ, excise duty CST VAT is exempted. So here, those exemptions on procurement fuel is not there. You have to take this into account. More so because today excise duty, VAT and CST are not creditable duties after GST. GST, when you sell the finished goods into domestic market, under EOU, you have a provision that you don't need to surrender the IGST on the imported raw material, only surrender the BCD. That kind of a provision is there. But here you have to pay IGST plus BCD. Though this is not so relevant because IGST is a creditable duty. Benefit of drawback in GST to domestic supplier. This is a major benefit which you don't get here. So whenever under advanced license EOU or SEZ scheme, you purchase product from a DTA supplier, raw material procurement from DTA, then either the GST is somewhat refunded to you in some other manner, and you also get all industry rate of drawback. So all the import duties which you have suffered in the supply chain below, those are refunded back to you. It is not embedded in the cost. This benefit is not there under the mover scheme. So you can take it into account that if you have a high proportion of domestic raw material in your factual scenario, then mover scheme may not be that suitable for you. Depreciation benefit available for capital goods. We have discussed this earlier. No duty on inputs contained in waste if within norms. Under EOU, you don't need to pay the duty contained in waste. So if you import 100 units of raw material and 2 units are wasted, when you clear the finished goods into DTA, you need to surrender the import duties. You will surrender only on the 98 units. 2 units pay you will not surrender if it is within the norms. Same in the advanced license. However, it is not the same in the mover scheme. You may have to refund or surrender the duties on the whole 100 units. Now, these are some non-financial benefits which are not there under the mover scheme, but you will find under other duty exemption scheme. Service export units are allowed in EOU SEZ scheme. So IT units you can see in EOU SEZ, but still there is no clarity whether such units can be set up under the mover scheme. We have discussed earlier that what is the meaning of manufacturing and other operations. Other operations, whether it covers services. There is no clarity right now. Prohibited goods are allowed to export on case-to-case basis. So even SEZ, EOU scheme allows you to export prohibited goods based on certain conditions, like you import the raw material 100%. That kind of a flexibility is not there in mover. So if your factual scenario covers this kind of a business of prohibited goods, that will not be possible under conversion to mover. Now, these are the procedural benefits which are there in the mover scheme and which are better as compared to advanced authorization EOU scheme. There is a single application for conversion, so manpower cost is less in that. Under advanced license, you have to make multiple applications for every year, and then subsequently you have to redeem those applications. At time of redemption, also many documents are required to be given, like BRC, and many people face issues in BRC and all later. So that kind of a flexibility is there in mover. You don't need to multiple applications and redemptions are not there. Once you convert into the mover scheme, free flow of duty-free deferred inputs, and you can make subsequent exports. Even renewal of the warehouse license is not required. Monthly returns are easy. There are no net foreign exchange calculations. So there is no requirement to achieve positive NFE under MOVE. So that's why the returns become a little easy to file. Norms only need to be ratified by jurisdictional commissioner and not by norms committee sign notified. Under advanced license EOU except SEZ, you may have to go to norms committee or get SIAN notified norms for do the manufacturing. Here, whatever input output norms, you have to settle it with the ratified from the jurisdictional commissioner. He is the concerned authority. Now, this is a little disputed, no restriction on availment of benefits under FTP. So it's actually a point to consider whether you can avail EPCG scheme along with mover. So you have a good export business for one product. Let's import capital goods under EPCG for those product. Because if you complete the export obligation, then your machinery is free from duties. You can sell it anywhere after the completion of your period. So that kind of a combination is possible or not? According to us, it is. There is no bar in making such combinations of scheme, but it needs to be clarified by CBIC. Now, this is one point. When you take an EPCG license, you cannot transfer your capital goods, main machinery, to the. You can transfer the capital goods to your supporting manufacturer. So EPCG scheme mein you have that flexibility that you import the machinery and give the machinery to your job worker, and then he can do the processing. That kind of a flexibility is not in the mover scheme. Only some molds, jigs, and drawings can be transferred to job worker. But the main machinery and all cannot be totally transferred to the job worker location. You may have to take this into account. Now we have studied someone who has a heavy investment in who should opt for mover. Now, person who having a heavy investment in imported plant and machinery, and he has more of a DTA business, he can offer mover. Someone with a high percentage of imported raw material and has more of DTA business, he can go for mover scheme. And anyways, you can always go for mover scheme even if you have export business, because the same benefits which are provided under other scheme are also provided over here. If you have a good DTA business along with export business, then this scheme is a good combination, because for DTA business, the interest benefit is there, which you save on duty deferment. If you have already have some inverted duty structure, though, you can offer this mover scheme. Now, if you're going for longer period of operations, this scheme may be useful. Shorter period, this scheme may not be useful. Some points we need to consider or need clarification from the board itself, whether we can opt for payment of non-payment of BCD and only pay IGST and take credit. So whether that kind of a thing will be allowed under mover scheme, whether they will say that if the goods are duty paid, then they cannot be stored into a warehouse. At last, it's a custom bonded warehouse. Whether such kind of a partially duty paid or fully duty paid goods are allowed to be stored or not. Because when you are doing a manufacturing, there can be several other requirements. Whether service industry is whether allowed or not in mover, we have discussed a while ago. When you are clearing warranty spares and replacements for the finished goods, whether that will be considered goods removed as such. So whether that interest liability will be there or not beyond 90 days. We have seen that under mover, you need to have import licenses which are required under the import policy of India. So if CBIC clarifies that if the goods are used in, if the goods resultant goods are exported, then the import licenses are not required. That can be a relaxation. Now, insurance policy requirement under mover, we see in the circular and also in the regulations, then you need over and above the duty bond, triple duty bond, you have to give an insurance policy for the duty amount, for the average duty on the goods which will be stored in 1 month or 2 months period. So that kind of a duty amount ka insurance policy you have to take under the mover scheme. So that insurance premium, that financial factor you need to take into account. Now, when you're making an analysis whether to offer the scheme or not, it is subjective based on factual position of each and every exporter. And we have last half 1 hour we have studied what are those factors which we need to take into account. Some representations we can, for making the scheme more attractive, those can be like under the mover right now, which we understand is ROTTEP, which has been started from 1st January 2021, may not be eligible to mover scheme. As of now, no statutory notifications of ROTTEP have been issued. We understand it from the scheme document and some past notifications from other schemes that similar ROTTEP benefit may not be allowed to mover scheme. So if you are considering for the scheme, you can make an upfront representation to CBIC why this benefit is not given to mover. One point to note, whatever duties are remitted under mover scheme and whatever duties are trying to be reimbursed under the mover scheme, those are different. So that's additional point why government may not provide that. Upfront representation would be helpful here. Depreciation on capital goods. So some kind of a model to give to provide depreciation on capital goods, either to the extent when it is used for export goods, at least to that extent it should be given. Eligibility to AI drawback. We have studied that domestic procurements, no GST benefit, no drawback benefit is there. Government can bring this benefit and say that if you clear the goods, finished goods into DTA, surrender the benefits. Based on that condition, you can give this benefit to the mover scheme. Clarification on going for mover along with EPC or advanced license, that kind of a clarification is required. Then other operations ka clarification, whether duty paid goods can be stored, why this insurance policy requirement is there if there is a triple duty bond. So this kind of a representation can be made to make the mover scheme more attractive. That's all we have from here. I will take a few minutes to introduce our firm. We are from Lakshmi Kumar and Sridharan Attorneys. It has been founded by Mr. V. Lakshmi Kumaran and Mr. V. Sridharan in 1985. So we have already completed 35 years of our establishment. It's the largest integrated law firm in India. We go strictly by our values of integrity, knowledge, and passion. In our firm, we have around 400 plus professionals, advocates or chartered accountants. Among that, 46 are partner levels. We have 14 offices pan India, and up till 35 years, we have done around 30,000 plus litigations and many advisory services. And among that, 3,000 plus cases with the Supreme Court of India. Our practice areas include GST, customs and foreign trade policy, international trade, WTO, direct tax, IPR, corporate, etc. All the practice areas are covered. That's a brief about our firm. We thank you for your patient listening. We can open it for question answer round.
Sir, from chat box, I can make out some of the questions have been posed. So we can just run through. One question is, can I remove raw materials from bonded area to export as raw material without any manufacturing activity, without paying any import duty? Yes, this is permissible. Goods imported into bonded warehouse, you can export in terms of section 69. There is no custom duty required to be paid. So without payment of custom duty, you can export the goods. Another question is, capital goods imported under mover scheme, only GST will be applicable on domestic sale of manufactured goods or custom duty plus GST. So what is deferred is required to be surrendered if you clear those goods. So suppose if capital goods you import and you get the deferred benefit, and if capital goods are not clear, then no need to pay any custom duty on capital goods. And if you imported inputs on payment of PCG and GST, etc., and those inputs you use in manufacture and clear in domestic, then no need to pay any custom duty on those inputs because those inputs are duty paid goods. So therefore, no need to pay any custom duty on capital goods so long as these remain in bonded warehouse.
Can a part
Yes.
or portion of existing factory be granted license under the mover scheme? It can can be, but under the mover scheme, there are various conditions. So I would say the bond officer comes and inspects your facility. That should have proper security, proper segregation between your existing factory and the mover. There can be a requirement of a boundary wall between the other factory and the mover factory. So that kind of a requirement is there under the regulation, procedural requirement. Yes, it can be based on some conditions. Since machine has been cleared duty free, we understand at the end of 10 years, duty must be paid. Now, if a company is exporting 20% of its production, is there any reduction in duty to be paid? Just 5 minutes back, I said this is a representation we need to make. Right now, the scheme says 100% of the duties are required to be paid. There is no relaxation. If for in 10 years you have goods use it for 20% exports, there is no relaxation for that. So that's a representation you can make to bring some kind of a depreciation model in mover scheme. To the extent it is used for export product. Right now it is not there. We recommend to make a representation to CBIC.
Since there is no obligation when you have imported the goods, there is no obligation on you to export. You have exported, but there is the scheme does not grant any benefit. So scheme says that if you clear the goods, if you clear the capital goods even after 50 years into domestic tariff, you have to pay back the entire duty. Duty payment is on finished goods value or imported material consumed to manufacture in case of export and also for DTS sales under mover. So in case of export, you need not pay any custom duty. It will be fully exempted. And in case of DTA clearance, you have to pay custom duty on the inputs. So custom duty, basic custom duty and IGST on the inputs and applicable GST on the finished goods. Those things you have to pay.
I request all participants, if you have any doubt, so you can unmute and speak as well.
No, I have a question like this payment of duty at the end of 10 years is not necessary. It can be even it can be paid even later on, say after 20 years or 30 years also, yes?
Yes. I mean, till the time goods remain in capital goods remain in bonded warehouse, you need not pay. But the day when you clear the goods for home consumption, on that day you have to file bill of entry and you have to pay them.
Okay. But like if there is any factory, sorry, I'll just complete one more question. Like if there is any factory which is running in India, all the raw materials cannot be imported. It will have to use some raw material which are domestically procured. But I think what I understood, it's difficult to have a domestic raw material also along with the imported raw materials.
So that's the reason if we see strictly speaking section 58 talks about that import of dutiable goods can be stored in bonded warehouse, and dutiable goods means the goods what you have imported but duty has not been paid. And if you procure domestically, it means those are duty paid goods. So strictly speaking, these goods are not allowed to be stored. But circular board categorically clarifies, and board says that just because this manufacturing activity requires you to import or you procure locally procured goods also, and which may not be available in international market. So therefore, because of that reason, this facility should not be denied. So therefore, exempted goods, duty paid goods from local sources also is allowed in bonded warehouse. In that case, you have to have separate record that these are duty paid goods. So as and when you clear the finished goods in domestic market, you need not surrender any custom duty because you are not paid on, you are not avail any benefit on those inputs what you have procured locally. So therefore, custom duty is required to be paid only those inputs where you have imported and avail this facility.
Thank you.
So one very important question that we have received is, can we get the PDF presentation of this copy so that we can share among all
We will share with you. And
right.
Yes, sir.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
If our entire raw material is domestic, but our machine is imported, and we also sell the entire product to domestic market only, not to export. In that scenario, can I use the mover scheme?
Yes, sir. There is no bar that even for import of capital goods also you can avail this facility. You need not pay any custom duty till the time capital goods remain in bonded warehouse. Because
And do I need to pay IGST also?
IGST on the finished goods. On the finished goods, as and when you clear, you have to pay applicable GST. It will depend upon your interest rate or interest,
Not on machine import, right?
not on machine.
Okay, thanks.
And in such kind of a scenario, the requirement of bill of entry may also not be there because you don't have any imported raw materials only. So whenever you clear goods from mover to make a sale in domestic market, it can be on invoice. No bill of entry requirements may also be not there.
So what Saurabh is saying, finished goods manufactured out of domestically procured goods, where you have not availed this facility, you need not file any bill of entry. You can simply issue the invoice on payment of GST, etc.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening. I have one question.
Yes.
If we use the imported raw material to make goods and sell them to the DTA, we have to pay the duty on the raw material as well as the interest, or just the duty?
Just duty only. Duty, basic custom duty along with IGST on the inputs. No interest will be there, and applicable GST on the finished goods.
But during the presentation, I think there was some gray area that you mentioned that
Yeah, that
the
was
interest.
if the imported inputs are cleared as such. If you imported inputs are converted into finished goods and finished goods are cleared in for home consumption, then you need not pay any interest. Basic custom duty along with IGST you have to pay on inputs by filing bill of entry and applicable IGST on the finished goods.
Okay, so for finished goods, it'll be only the duty, no interest.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
So one more question. For the PVC product, 65% of PVC resin, which may import, balance 35% from domestic. Is there is any benefit for that 35% of additives procured from domestic market?
And those you will be using for manufacture and export or domestic only?
Naman,
For
can you
export.
mention this question?
So that's what Saurabh highlighted in the last few slides, that the procurement from domestic sources will be on payment of applicable GST. If these inputs are used in the manufacture and export, no drawback would be available. So therefore, that will be lost to that extent. But if suppose being in DTA, if you manufacture and then export, you will be eligible to get all industry rate of drawback. But here in mover, you will not get drawback.
We have one more question. Can we clear
Yes.
material from our bonded warehouse using advance authorization scheme?
See, there is no bar. I mean, advance authorization as well as mover both can work. But again, the purpose of mover is to allow you to import for deferment purposes for manufacture, and the purpose of advance license is to allow you to import duty-free inputs on subject to the condition that you will export. So there is an obligation. So scheme, there is a bar in that, but only thing is procedural challenges could be there, that how will you maintain record with respect to the inputs imported against advance license and under the mover scheme, etc. So there suggested that if we file any representation, probably board clarifies, then it will be better.
Anyone
One
having
important
any other question?
One important question we have received, that is this scheme considered supplies to EOU SEZ as exports? So I can say yes. Under the EOU and SEZ scheme, they have provision that you can procure goods from a warehouse. So, and without payment of duty. So when you supply the finished goods from the mover scheme to a EOU buyer or to a SEZ buyer, there is no payment of duty required. If the EOU buyer or SEZ buyer in turns clears it, uses it into making finished goods and he sells into DTA, he may have to give back the duties. But on this transaction, you supplying to the EOU or SEZ unit, the duties on the imported raw material need not be surrendered at this time. You can only intimate to EOU SEZ buyer that these are the duties I have deferred. Now, if you clear into DTA, then you may have to pay these duties.
And similarly for SEZ also, it will be considered a zero rated supply.
And even EOU unit, when he sells the products to a mover unit, EOU unit need not give back the duties on the raw material he has used. Rajan sir, is that correct? Right statement?
Yes, correct. Then one question I think is repeating. Can I remove raw materials from bonded area to export? Yes, you can export the goods imported into mover for the purpose of export without paying any custom duty. No custom duty is to be paid. Then another question, mover talks about the stores manager. Is customs appoint the store manager for private bonded warehouse? No, the warehouse keeper is to be appointed by the license holder. And warehouse keeper's role would be to receipt and then clearance of the goods, and then bringing of and then where the goods are received from custom station or from another warehouse holder, etc. Then he has to manage the things. So this warehouse keeper is to be appointed by the license holder. It's not by the custom department. In mover, did the custom authority inspect the factory or private godowns before granting under section 58 and 65? Yes, not 58, but for 65, because 65 permission would be given based on your premise. So it should be fully secured, and local key, etc. would be there. It may not be fully sealed, fully covered, but at least it should be fully secured, and your raw materials, etc. can be fully secured in that. So therefore, inspection would be there and should be there by the authorized officer before giving the license. And inspect in the sense they can conduct the audit also. That also is there. So based on your risk criteria, they can select for any particular entity for conducting the audit also. We are edible oil industry. Can mover be used by yes? Raw material is imported and after processing the finished goods is sold locally. Yes, you can do so, but as and when you clear the finished goods in domestic tariff area, you have to pay applicable custom duty on the inputs along with IGST and GST on the finished goods. So there is no bar that you cannot clear in domestic tariff area.
You should analyze what is the interest benefit you are earning on
Correct.
deferring the import duties. That is the thing you should analyze.
In order to supply material to an EOU against advance authorization team report, please advise the correct procedure. See, in advance license holder, if it supplies the goods to EOU, there is no upfront exemption from GST. Applicable GST is required to be paid. There are two aspects for this question. One aspect would be deemed export under GST as well as deemed export under foreign trade policy, because supply of goods by DTA to EOU also is considered as deemed export under foreign trade policy. So advance authorization holder can import the inputs, manufacture the finished goods and supply to EOU. No need to pay any custom duty on the inputs, and applicable GST what is paid on the supply of finished goods to EOU, that also will be available as refund. So therefore both the benefit would be available. The procedure would be advance authorization holder has to get the license from DGFT, and it will be license issued in terms of the notification 18 of 2015. So therefore that license can be obtained from DGFT.
One more question. Suppose we have been
So-
granted license under section 58 and 65 and start using this MO scheme. In what frequency did the custom audit will take place?
So there is no specific criteria. It may be once in a year or maybe 5 years, once in 5 years. So it will depend upon that. Like customs audit regulations have been framed in the customs law in 2018. So they may based on theme or based on some other criteria, they will determine that. So there is no specific criteria for any interval, etc. is there. It will depend upon the risk selection criteria.
This question
But
is
but normally what they say, the circular says that you have to maintain the records for 5 years. So if suppose you imported the goods today, you have to maintain the records for 5 years. So therefore we can consider that within 5 years they may come for audit.
next question is, if I want to add production capacity in my DTA unit, can I import the new machine under more scheme?
So,
Yes, Saurabh.
so your whole DTA facility, either it can be converted into mover, or a partial machine cannot be imported into mover, and your other
So Malpani, I think
for other operations you will you will be governed under the normal scheme, and only for that machine you will be governed under the mover scheme. That may not happen. The whole DTA facility may have to be converted into the mover scheme. Or if your new machinery is getting installed in a new warehouse, or suppose a new building, so that building you can convert into the mover scheme, and you have to follow the mover norms for that building where your new capacity is there.
Then there are
Can warehouse keeper be an employee of the company or will be the third independent party?
it can be an employee of the company. There is no need for us to appoint a third company's employee. It can be our own employee.
Next question is custom official presence is required while inward or outward of material?
There is no need for their physical presence. If as and when if they want to inspect or want to see any verification, etc., they can come. But otherwise, their presence is not required for every inward and outward.
Next question is planning to import a machine under more scheme. Buyer is X unit and machine has to be installed at Y unit. Is it possible under more scheme under bill to ship to the mode?
This may not be possible because in mover they allow you to send the raw materials, molds, etc., but not the capital goods. So if you want to facility or if you want to avail the deferment of payment of duty for capital goods imported into mover, then the goods have to be installed in the mover premise only. It cannot be installed in supporting manufacturer premise. So goods should come to our premise.
Next question is which date will be considered as a filing X bond in more scheme?
This will be the date on which you file the bill of entry for home consumption. So section 15(1)(c) would be applicable with 15(1)(b) that in case of bonded warehouse, if the goods is stored in bonded warehouse, as and when you file X bond bill of entry, and that date would be considered for you to pay the duty.
Next question is what type of return or details is required to be submitted in more and in what frequency?
In circular 30, you can just note down that monthly return is required to be filed for you to operate under mover, and the details also in there because in the receipt, what all goods you have received, what all goods have been consumed, and then what all goods you have cleared. So entire details we have to provide in that. So monthly return we have to file that.
Yeah, Mr. Shivshankar is asking more versus free trade agreement or preferential trade agreement. Please put some light which is beneficial.
So if you are importing your raw materials and they will be used in the domestic business, you'll be manufacturing finished goods and selling to DTA. Then I think so free trade agreement may provide a very lower rate of duty. So you should go for the free trade agreement because you may have to compare the duties. You will have an interest benefit under mover that the duties will be deferred. If you go for free trade agreement, you have to pay the duties upfront. So whatever duties are required to be paid. One point is whether Ratan sir, whether we can use the free trade agreement at the time of ex-bonding.
I was about to say that only. Yes. I was about to say that if imported, so one thing is whether both the benefits I can avail or not. That is
yes.
one. Second, if suppose if goods are imported in mover and are cleared as such, probably I can get that benefit. But the problem would be the rate would be applicable on the date when you clear the goods for home consumption. So on that date, whether this exemption is available or not, that is to be seen. So certificate you have to obtain at the time when you file interbound bill of entry, but exemption we need to see as and when the goods are cleared from home consumption. This would be applicable only if the imported inputs are cleared as such. But if imported inputs are used in manufacture and then clear, even then that benefit would be available because I need to pay the custom duty on the inputs. So in both the cases, mover as well as FTA, both benefits can be claimed.
All scheme can be availed by all industry manufacturer or any specific industry is restricted.
As such, there is no restriction. Each industry can claim, they can avail this facility. There is no bar or any specific restriction, etc. Apart from this precious metal and all, there are some categories. For them, the special bonded warehouse have been introduced, so they can avail the facility. But otherwise, all other manufacturers can avail this facility.
Okay, last question is, so you can remove the stock for process without filing X bond bill?
No, without
Bill of entry.
yes, sir.
X1 bill of entry is required when you are clearing the finished goods into DTA. So when you are giving the raw material for consumption into manufacturing process, at that time X1 bill of entry is not required.
Yes.
That's all the questions from chat box. Any of the participants would like to ask any question to the speaker? Yeah, one more question is there. If companies applied for more, is it necessary for obtaining AEO?
No, there is no compulsion because AEO is altogether different. Authorized economic operator is the procedural, is the benefit given by the government in terms of the trade facilitation agreement what India has entered. So in addition to mover, you can also apply for AEO. One more thing is there because whether apart from bond executed in terms of 59 and guarantee also is required to be given or not is not clear. But suppose if you have the AEO certificate T1 or T2, then probably you can get that benefit also. So therefore, in addition to mover, you can also get that facility of AEO, but there is no compulsion.
So one thing is not clarified. The one question is again asked. Duty payment is on finished goods value or imported material consumed to manufacture product. It is on imported material consumed to manufacture product. It is not
Yeah.
on finished goods value.
Yes. So basic custom duty and IGST on the imported value and GST finished GST on the finished goods value. So there are
And if
two.
you're
One IGST on the inputs, and that you can take credit, and then applicable GST on the finished goods. If we buy
any
an advance authorization and export finished goods, then we have to charge IGST. No, if you export, so if suppose if you import raw material like advance authorization, you are free to claim the benefit of BCD as well as IGST. Finished goods you have to export under LUT. You cannot export on payment of GST. So export you have to do under LUT if you avail the IGST exemption on your input. That's what the problem is being faced by industry under Rule 96 and Rule 10 of CGST rules.
any
Yeah, that's
logic
all.
for not giving ROTTEB incentive to mover? The only logic can be financial crunch from the government side. Other than that, according to us, duty reimbursed under both the schemes are different. So there is no logic. But we will have to wait for the certain notifications.
Correct. But as of now, our this indication is based on the ROSC scheme announced for textile industry in 2019. Rebate of state and central taxes levies that was for textile industries. So there apparently when they've given this benefit, they indicated that this scheme is not applicable for mover. So from that only we are just taking clue that it may not be available. I mean, ROTEP also may not be available.
I request participants, if they have any question, please put in chat box.
They have written.
One question is if imported material is partly defective, what will be implications to return back material to overseas supplier? That is routinely done. I mean, like if you operate other than mover, then whatever process you follow, you can do so. So you can file shipping bill, export the goods, and again bring back that. So from mover, you are free to export the defective goods. Mover can valuation may be questioned by customs authority if clearance is taken under mover and since the duty is exempted upfront. No. So value will remain same because section 15(1)(b) says that the rate of duty will be applicable on the date when you cleared the goods for home consumption, but value will remain same. The one what is when you file the into bond bill of entry. So value will be freeze on the date when you file into bond bill of entry. If department questions on the day itself, on the day when you file into bond bill of entry, then probably you have to justify that our value is not undervalued. So that can be questioned at the time of filing into bond bill of entry.
I would like to thank Mr. Shiv Shankar Shroff on behalf of the audience on asking beautiful questions and making the scheme more clear for the audience.
One more question is there. Under EPCG, the goods are free of any obligation once the export obligation has been fulfilled. So what understand that that when investment in capital goods is high, mover is not beneficial.
Investment is high, but for longer period is there. And if you are uncertain about your exports, then mover is beneficial, because in mover you will import today the capital good, you will get that benefit. If you are not sure that you will be able to export or not, and if you are intending to retain the goods for longer period, maybe for 5 years, 10 years or 20 years, then mover is beneficial. But if you are sure that you will be able to fulfill the export obligation, then probably EPCG scheme would be better, because after completion you are free to clear the goods, capital goods in domestic, or whatever you want to do you can do so.
Next question is from Mr. Arvind Jain. At present, EOU required permission from customs for doing the job work for other EOU and or DTA units.
Yes, EOU is required to obtain annual permission in terms of foreign trade policy from Development Commissioner, and basis that only it can undertake job work activity, and that job work activity can be undertaken only for the purpose of export. So after doing the job work activity, goods cannot be sent back to DTA. It has to be exported from EOU.
Okay, the next question is, can free samples can be exported in more?
Yes, there is no bar, subject to the permissions given by RBI. The whatever limit they have specified for export or for free sample export, basis that you can export from more.
So Sarkar is asking, supply from EOU to more raw material is allowed?
Yes, this is also allowed. From EOU to more also raw material can be cleared.
Next question is Mr. Kunal Gandhi. Any data or on how many companies have obtained the more?
We also want, if you can provide us.
And that's all. All the questions are over now. And it's over to you.
So I think this is really, yeah. Is there any more questions? I think we have crossed more than 25 minutes for question answer session. I really thank our speaker, Mr. Ratan Jain and Mr. Saurabh Malpani for addressing all the queries. Probably for the first, after long time, we are having a long question and answer session, which signifies that our webinar was very much interesting and required at the right time. We'll be coming up with the more webinars as well in the coming time. We are coming up with the plastic recycling webinar, BIS and technology webinar in current month. We are also coming up with the government schemes of MSME. So we request all participants to join and take advantage of all the webinars that council is organizing. We acknowledge the presence of committee members, chairman, vice chairman, and all the COA members for joining this session. We also thank for their support. We also thank support for the all associations for spreading the words among their members and make them join this webinar. It was really insightful. We thank our speaker once again for resolving all the queries. We request to share your PPT so that we can send it across to all our participants. And if you have any more questions, any queries, or you can contact us anytime at any of the Plex Council offices. I'm sure our speaker will also later on will be ready to answer all the queries of our participants. So stay in touch, stay healthy, stay happy, and stay safe. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today for this webinar. And thank you very much once again.